Hello, and welcome to the Come to Your Senses podcast. I'm your host, embodiment-based coach, Mary Lofgren. Here, we explore how to live bravely and beautifully through a lifestyle of embodiment. You'll hear gems to empower you around mindset, mindfulness, somatic psychology, and neuroscience, as well as beauty, food, style, and the art of slow living to meet your soul through the senses. I am so happy that you're here. Let's begin. Hello, beautiful listeners, and welcome to Come to Your Senses. Welcome to today's episode, which is part 3 in a juicy little sequence that we've been cultivating together on the art of seducing yourself into a new habit. So if you haven't yet listened to the previous 2 episodes, no problem. You can absolutely jump right into the gems of today. But I do highly recommend going back to episodes 105 and 106, because if you imagine that what we're cultivating here today is kind of like a campfire, 105 and 106 are like clearing the space and stacking the logs. Today, we are going to be focusing on striking the match, because as we've talked about in the previous 2 episodes, when it comes to our habits are a lot more of an ecosystem than they are an arrow. Habits, just like everything in our lives and everything that we talk about here on Come to Your Senses, all of it is energy. All of it is life force. Commitment is life force. Resistance is life force. Change is life force. Apathy is life force. And so in the first episode, we talked about freeing up your energy and your life force by not just adding in a new habit, but actually looking at where in the landscape of your life you might need to prune and trim some of your current habits to create space to have a new experience. And that was where we really focused on the what of creating a new habit. In the second episode, part 2 of this masterclass, we talked about gathering that energy that has now been freed up through your deep why and fueling your actions with purpose. And today we're going to go into the how of how to use and create with that energy in chapter 3. Seduction, as I've said many times on this podcast, is very simply the way we perceive seduction here. It's very simply attraction in action. This more sacred, sovereign kind of self-seduction is where you feel so deeply led by the desires and the visions in your heart that you really can't help but act and move towards them. And so we have done the most important part, as I said at the start, which is clearing the space and stacking the wood. And now we move into what I might call in the different stages of seduction, which are anticipation, preparation for the desire, feeling the desire, letting yourself be led and inspired by this desire. Culmination, which is the actual having, receiving of the desire. And then afterglow, which is appreciating and digesting the experience of having received. We are here my friends. We are in culmination. And the thing is, I know that you are one smart cookie and that you probably know a lot of things that you can do in order to start a new habit. So if you want to drink more water, there's ginormous water bottles that have like a gallon of water that you can measure throughout the day, and you can measure where you're at in your hours. And if it's 2 p.m., crap, I should have drinking this much water by this time. There are apps that will buzz you and remind you to drink water. If you want to bring more exercise into your life, you could join a running group. There's all sorts of things that you could do. If you want to see your life more through the eyes of abundance, you might start a gratitude journal, or texting your partner or the people in your life reasons why you adore them. Strategy is a limitless world of possibility. What we're going to talk about today is not necessarily doing all the right things and finding the right things, but we're instead going to talk about the bedfellow of action, which is failure. So Mark Twain once said, "You can't break a bad habit by throwing it out the window. You've got to walk it slowly down the stairs." And the example that I've been using from my own life in these episodes is my relationship to social media and my phone. And feeling like my phone was taking up so much of my time and energy and attention, so I deleted social media apps and email off of my phone. And last I left you, I was in the phase of rapture when we let go of a habit that's really consuming our life force, and we start to feel that life force flood back in. And I shared that I was feeling new layers of my brain open up and regrowing parts of my brain, and it feels so good. And then sneaky little me found a way to get back on my phone without actually downloading email or social media apps. But I did download a new dating app, and I also logged into email through my little internet icon on my phone. And so here I am. Oops, got sidetracked, funneling back into the habit. And, there are lots of episodes here on the podcast about what happens to return us to our known state of being. So as I started to spiral out into this experience of richer intimacy with myself and greater presence and less reliance on the unnatural world of technology, I guess there was just a tipping point where my little system says, oops, too much, this is too much. And, that is just the mystery of human nature. It's really not a mystery if you study nervous system and polyvagal theory and attachment theory, why sometimes the exact thing that we long for can be so intolerable and painful. But that's a whole other existential rabbit hole that we won't go down today. What I will say is that I looked at my screen time and it was back up to where it was with the social media apps. And typically, when one finds themselves getting off track, there is a very natural response and reaction that wants to plug up the hole in the bucket as fast and as furiously as possible. And this is often where we go into binaries. Oh God, here I am. Look at my screen time, back up to 4 hours. Delete every single, go get a non-smartphone, that's one of the strategies. Or, well, I guess this is just who I am. I guess this is just how I am. I'll never change. Eeyore syndrome. And I work with this a lot with my clients in the work of embodiment, because when it comes to the language of the body does not speak in terms of good or bad, right or wrong. It simply speaks in the language of honesty. And this space of honesty and curiosity is where we can dive below the binaries of good and bad, plug up the hole, deepen the hole. I just had this memory flood in of a little floaty that I had as a kid. And it was in the shape of a dog, and I named it Flip Flop. And I was crazy about it and so excited to take it out on the water. And before I took it out on the water, I somehow got a puncture hole in it. And I cried, and I was so disappointed. And little did I know that my dad, my sweet, caring, beloved dad, had gone out to get a floaty repair kit. And I remember sitting on the bed and crying and being so upset that I just ripped the hole bigger. Like I just made it so much worse. And then my dad came back with a repair kit and we couldn't even use it. It was beyond repair. And I think that that's a gorgeous articulation of just what happens when we jump from what I hear Desiree Adaway talk about as awareness to action, bypassing the very essential step of analysis. So awareness, analysis, action. So Desiree Adaway is an amazing anti-racism educator and has several courses and a community around creating an equity-centered workplace. And she says that often when folks start to enter the landscape of anti-racism, they'll do that flip from awareness, oh God, this is bad, I've been complicit, I've been participating, I need to do something about it. Missing and bypassing the crucial step of listening and analysis and actually being a follower of those who are already leading, instead of doing what for white folks like myself is usually our default, which is trying to lead by compulsion, because that's the position that we're used to in a white supremacist system. And so while these are two very different topics, using new dating apps on my phone and the work of anti-racism, what they hold in common is that the answer is not in leaping into action without thought, but it is pausing in the complexity to listen and understand and make next steps from the space of the pause. One of the support groups that I belong to, something I heard there recently that just so moved me is God is the pause. And so how this all pertains to seducing yourself into a new habit is that seduction has the energy of aliveness. It is always moving, it's always shifting, which is very different than linear should and shouldn't action. And so, once again, there are millions of ways that you could change a habit. And there will also be a time and be a moment where you forget or you fail or your sneaky little nervous system downloads a new app on your phone. And that brings us to a choice point. And choice point is always where our power is. Because those automatic binaries of linear thought don't often have a lot of choice. They have a lot of life force, but that life force is usually unfocused and undirected. And it is also authored by our past experiences. And one of the coaches that I follow and have learned from when it comes to creating new habits and a shift in mindset and identity is the coach Tanya Lee. And she talks about how your perception of yourself, which authors your habits and your actions, is written by your past. And so that in order to have a different experience, you need to start thinking from a different place, from the place of your future. And she has a great episode about living from your future. And whenever I recommend Tanya's work, I do like to just give a little content warning that she does sometimes talk about weight loss in her episodes. And so if that's a trigger for you, as it can be for many of us, may want to skip that one. But future self is the vision of the you that has already created what it is that you desire. And last episode, maybe I was talking about this with a friend. Did I talk about a scene where I was writing on a rainy day in London and my NGO founding hot German boyfriend had just gone off to work? I hope so. Regardless, I wanted to share a story with you today that was taken from an assignment that Tanya sometimes gives out, which is to write a love letter from your future self to the you that is here now. And the intention is to gather and cultivate the feeling that you believe your future self has that you don't currently have. And this has been really powerful work that I have done in creating and moving towards my goals and new habits. And in my love letter from my future self to me, she was sitting at a kitchen table on a rainy day in London. Her hot German boyfriend had just gone off to work at the NGO that he founded. She was preparing to be a guest on a high-profile podcast and then meeting a collection of very worldly, stylish friends for lunch at a posh cafe. And as I was writing this, I was like, good God, how shallow are you, Mary? Like, for heaven's sake. And it's hard to suspend the judgment of the details. And so if you choose to do this exercise and explore your relationship with your future self, know that there might be some analysis paralysis and criticism. And I urge you to just keep writing and focus on the details as they come through, but know that the details are really just red herrings for the feeling that lies beneath that. And the feeling for myself that I think was the essence of that letter was not holding back. And I had a really interesting experience recently where I've been referring back to this future self and some other work that I've done around it. And I've been having some chronic tummy issues. And when I say chronic, it's been most acute in the last 6 months or so, but really my whole life, I've really struggled with tummy issues. And I was laying in bed, massaging my belly, and I asked my future self, who was free of this issue, what would she have me know? What would she have me do? And she relayed this wisdom. Mary, this isn't one issue. This is a whole ecosystem that needs to be taken into account. So I had been focusing on diet and God, what is that food that I need to either include or exclude from my diet? And it's like, man, there is a whole package contributing to this issue. Food, water, tension in my belly, shame stories I hold about my tummy troubles, exiling that part of my body because of shame that I feel around it. And that little glimpse from my future self was so incredibly helpful because the experiences that I had had up until that moment were, oh heavens, so much emphasis on strategy Exclude gluten, dairy, sugar, flour, wheat, and eat raw, eat only cooked foods. Get your poop tested. Poop tests don't work, take probiotics. No, take enzymes. There's a lot of information out there in the world. But what my future self knows is that I am the ultimate authority on what works for my body. And my past self, which had abdicated her power around this to the quote unquote experts, and that's not to diminish the experts who really do have dedicated their whole lives to studying this kind of thing. I'm grateful for their wisdom. But ultimately, it's me and my body that are the actual teachers. And so once again, it's like from my past self, all I knew how to do was attack the problem from the outside in. I think it's so interesting when I'm working with a client and they use the word attack or manage. I just need to manage. I just need to attack this area of my life. And I was attacking my own belly. So of course it's cowering in the corner. But when I tune into that future self who doesn't hold back, she doesn't exorcise any of her parts. She prepares each of them a seat at the banquet table to hear and alchemize the wisdom and experience that they have to share. And since I've been relating to my belly differently, I have been having a really, really different experience. I'd say that the main difference that I notice is that when I think about it as an ecosystem, rather than just this one turnip that I need to root out, my whole belly relaxes. So it's like an instant kind of relief where I don't even have to do a thing. It's simply a shift in perspective. And as Course in Miracles says, a miracle is very simply a shift in perspective from fear to love. And so, my darling pets, that rounds out our episode for today. And I think really is the underlying magic of this particular phase of the seduction, which is that when you meet the inevitable fields of resistance and obstacle and failure, no problem, nothing's wrong, nothing to be fixed, no reason for punishment, simply soft curiosity, looking to your wise future self and holding in that pause and that choice point to shift from fear to love. I hope that that is medicine for you to take to your own collection of gems of wisdom for today. And as with everything shared here in the podcast and on the podcast, these are my life experiences, and I encourage you to hold them up to the light of your own lived experience to see if and how they resonate as truth for you in your life, because you are the ultimate authority when it comes to the galaxy of you. As always, thank you so much for listening. If you would like to offer a gesture of gratitude, if you received something that you wanted or needed from this episode, I would be so grateful if you would like, subscribe, and or review the podcast on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. And thank you so much for coming to our campfire to listen today. I will see you in the next episode. For coaching, classes, and community in creating a lifestyle of embodiment, head to schoolofsensualliving.com. There you'll find a free video series on how to reduce anxiety and intercept the stress response through powerful, confident body language. Head to schoolofsensualliving.com/confidence to watch your first video